Thanks everyone for joining today too. So Drew and I, we are over at Bildr.com, Bildr.com. And Bildr is a visual development tool where you can build basically full stack web products without writing code, but you can also just dive into code and do all kinds of things with it. So it's really intended to be more low code, but you can do almost anything you want visually. So today what I wanted to talk about though is the shift that we're making into Web3. So we started doing that in late last year, like in November, December, we started integrating some Web3 tech into the core of Bildr, and we've just been adding since then. It's beginning to accelerate. So the purpose of this workshop today is really to go from 0 to 1 in Web3. So we're going to talk about some terminology. We're going to talk about how we view that terminology, talk about different ways to use this new tech in your existing business or in future businesses, how it relates to community, things like that. And then I'll do some demoing of different ways you can use some of the tooling inside of Bildr to help you out with those different pieces. This topic can get like super deep, super fast. That's why a lot of people call it a rabbit hole. You know, they say I went down the rabbit hole because once you start, if you get interest in it, people tend to go all the way in and just further and further and further. And there's tons of reading out there to be done. There's a lot of new information popping up every day. The space is moving really fast and people are learning really quickly as they try things and implement solutions and find that those solutions didn't work and try something else. And there's a lot of that going on in Web3 right now. So it's a lot of fun to be a part of the space. And so glad everyone's here to learn a little more. Drew, before I dive in, you want to jump in and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I can quickly say something. I'm Drew, and been working on all this Web3 stuff that Mark was just talking about. And it's sort of coming to a point now where we are doing all these different pieces and we are learning and discovering what Web3 was, almost like with everyone else. And we're at a point now where everything's coming together and we can provide like some templates and some patterns. We can actually like provide a path to make Web3 easier and just like make more sense for people. So I'm super excited just to show it off in one kind of cohesive piece.
Awesome. Cool. I'll go ahead and show my screen. Let's see. Hopefully this works. We tried it earlier and it worked, but give it another shot here. All right. You should be seeing there. All right. Drew, can you confirm that you can see that?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so like I said, 0 to 1 in Web3, that's the intent of this workshop. And so there's 4 things that I want to go through. First thing is just talking about at a high level Web3 and decentralization. What are those things? How does it relate to the world today? How does it relate to the world of yesterday and the future? What does that look like? And then a couple of practical applications for some of the early things in Web3. One of those is NFTs used for startup funding and for early community. I think it's a really powerful part of this tech that's sort of underutilized right now that we're going to see a lot more usage of. And then sort of the first real world use case that I've seen a lot of is token-based authentication. So that's for doing things like accessing content only if you have a certain NFT or set of tokens in your wallet, something along those lines. And then the last thing we'll talk about is Bildr's Web3 templates and blocks. Then we'll probably open it up for quick Q&A as well. We can go as deep as everyone wants to go today. Like I said, it's a super deep rabbit hole, so I'm going to try to keep it pretty high level, and then we'll dive in where we need to. So first, let's just kind of define decentralization. And I don't even really mean in the context of tech, just like in general. The best definition, or my favorite definition, I would say, the most concise I've seen is this. It's the act of moving authority out of a central source and into a network. And so you can take that in a lot of different ways, right? Like one way you could take that is, say in a business where it's a small business and every decision is being made by the CEO and all the things that have to happen have to funnel through that CEO. At some point, that system becomes too big for a single person or a single source to actually make all those decisions. So the decision making and the authority needs to be distributed out through a network of people. In a business, that's typically like a set of executives or managers or a board, that kind of thing. And in tech, it means the same thing. You're basically, rather than centralizing everything, you're moving out all of the authority of everything into a network, and that goes into several different places. But before I go into that, I want to kind of talk about like what was Web 1, where are we at today, and then what is the goal of Web 3. And this is something that's probably up for interpretation, especially the Web 3 part. A lot of people define it in different ways. Some people call it the metaverse, some people call it all kinds of things, but in general, this is how we view it. So in Web 1, this was like the beginning of the internet. Basically, there were individuals around the world who had websites that they were hosting, typically hosting it on like a computer in their office, connected to the internet. So if Drew wanted to access Mark's website, he would actually get resolved to my computer sitting in my office, versus right now in Web 2, it kind of goes the other way, right? There's these data centers, there's the cloud, right? So the contrast between Web 1 and Web 2 is sort of twofold in the way I see it. One is that it's self-hosted versus centrally hosted. And the other is that it's static websites versus now we're talking about interactive platforms in Web 2. And what happened was businesses basically got involved and said, wait, I can have a website that is used for outbound marketing. That's fantastic. We'll go ahead and do that. But in the beginning, they were also self-hosting those websites and they were putting those out. At some point, the scale got big enough to where they couldn't really do that in-house anymore. So things like Azure and Rackspace and AWS popped up to centralize all that for scale, right? So those data centers came up, and that's what we called the cloud. And that creates a certain set of scenarios, right? Where it's much easier to perform things that way, right? So now if I want to go spin up a website, I don't have to go create a computer in my office specifically for that or buy a computer for that. I can just go sign up for AWS and it's all hosted, right? Web 3 is sort of trying to blend these two things together. So the idea is that communities run these things and they host these interactive platforms on open networks that are like data centers, except for they're distributed data centers. And that's what blockchains effectively are. So they're ways to basically host and validate data that exists broadly, but do it in a way that's not centralized into the hands of a certain group of people. And it's funny today, like in the news today, I'm sure most of you saw this, right? Elon Musk made an offer to buy Twitter this morning. And this kind of like plays into this talk really, really well. One of my favorite Twitter personalities in Web3 is this Punk6529. If you don't follow him and you're interested in these things, you should follow him. But he kind of points to these things that I'm talking about here pretty well. He's saying, if you're excited about it, or if you like really are not okay with Elon taking over Twitter, that's a symptom of the same thing, right? And the point is that something like our social messaging platform should be a protocol that's outside of the hands of any individual or small group of individuals controlling it. Sort of think of it like SMTP for email. No one really controls SMTP as a protocol. There's no like single CEO that can go turn that off or change the way it works or something like that. It's a protocol, so it's like an underlying layer. And basically what he's advocating for is, really these social messaging apps, these social networks should be a protocol layer that no one can manipulate in this way. So anyways, that was an interesting aside that kind of popped up in the middle of thinking about this whole presentation. So here's another way to kind of look at it. Web 2 to Web 3, you can sort of, this isn't a direct, it's not all perfectly direct, but this should get you kind of from Web 2 to Web 3 mentally. So in terms of hosting, you're going from data centers and cloud to blockchain, right? So that's kind of the general idea. It may not be blockchain, it might be something like file storage like IPFS, where it's a distributed file storage, but it's the same concept. You're going from centralized to decentralized. And then on the business side in Web 2, you're talking about corporations where you have a CEO, you have a board, and you might have shareholders, but it's not open to the users to really be making the decisions. In Web 3, that gets replaced with a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. So basically what that means is that the users or the people who are a part of the DAO, get to all make decisions together. And that sounds like a very utopian idea because it is. In practice, it's extremely hard to make decisions at scale like that, right? Like I can imagine you have like a 5 or 6 person board, right? That's fairly difficult to manage in a corporation. When you're like pseudo board and a DAO is 15,000 people, that's going to be a problem for decision making, right? So for Web3 to actually fulfill those types of promises, there's a lot that has to come about. And then in terms of users, we're moving from email addresses, which are typically, there's a couple things. One is they're tied internally to centralized databases like Gmail or something like that. And they're usually associated to your person, like who you are. Whereas a wallet address is intentionally anonymous, right? So those things all kind of tie together when you're talking about Web3. But at the high level, this is sort of where we're moving in terms of like tech, business, and our association of individuals to the things they're using on the web. And then there's 2 other terms that I kind of want to define here, or at least have you thinking about. One of them is just the idea of being autonomous. And really it just means self-governing. So that like a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. By autonomous, it basically just means that there isn't an external structure or an external power that can really govern it. It's governed internally, right? So, and that could be a person, that could be a family, that could be a nation, it could be a company, it can be anything, right? So just autonomous. And then self-sovereign is also a really important term in the space. Really, it's individual independence, right? This Spider-Man kind of stuff. With great power comes great responsibility kind of thing. And it's really important to think about because it's a requirement of Web3. And if you kind of take it back to Web 1, where you have this person who have their server back here in the back, and they are hosting their website, they have all the power over their information that they are putting out into the world. And they also have all the responsibility over that information that they're putting out into the world. Web 2 kind of removed a lot of that power and also removed a lot of that responsibility. And Web 3 is an attempt to put some of that back as well. So a lot of what you see in Web 3, a lot of what scares people about jumping in, like for instance, a wallet. If you have a bunch of cryptocurrency in your wallet and you lose the keys to your wallet, there's no insurance that comes back and saves you on that, right? It's not like a bank account. And so you're completely independent, but that means because you have all the power, you have all that responsibility as well, and no one's there to save you for it. So that's a really important thing to think about whenever you're getting into this space. Now, these things will get solved over time. Like people will solve these things. Some things will go more centralized. Some things will remain decentralized. There will be a happy medium found. I think all this stuff is really cyclical. We're just seeing like the ups and downs of just human nature, honestly. So to bring all that back in, the decentralized web, this is my favorite definition of it that I've found so far. This is the founder of WebTorrent, and you can read that, but it's basically saying that it's a system of privately owned computers that are providing the information and the services in a way that can't easily be taken down, right? Like that's kind of the goal of it. Make it super resistant, super resilient. That's really the goal of a decentralized web. All right, so, but if we're talking reality, right? So that was all kind of like pie in the sky. I would love for the world to be this utopian state kind of thing. But reality is there are technical limitations and there are consumer realities at play. So on the technical limitations side, you have things like scale of the amount of data that can be processed on a blockchain. Even the most efficient, best blockchains out there today are like orders of magnitude slower and more costly than something like SQL Server, right? So on a realistic basis, there are just technical limitations that have to be overcome before this technology can actually take over certain things. Sort of like what happened with cloud migration, right? I mean, like in the beginning of people saying, let's go to the cloud, let's go to the cloud. It just takes time because there's technical limitations. You can't actually run certain things in the cloud in the same way you can behind your firewall. And so it just takes time for the technical side to catch up. And then there's also consumer realities. Most people don't even know what a Web3 browser is. I would argue a lot of people don't even know what a browser is or care what a browser is. They just know that they're accessing some content through an app or whatever it is. They're not really thinking about it in those terms. And so in order to get someone into this new world, it requires a different set of tech on the front end for the users as well. So the way we see it is we're a long ways off from that. And so really what we look at is Web 2.5. We see it as, how do you take certain things from a decentralized framework and apply them to technology that exists today that can be used right now, and how can that help businesses today? How can it help businesses in the future and be a part of this transition that's going to take us from Web 2 to Web 3? But we see it as a very long transition. This is like a multi-decade transition to get the majority of the world moving this way. So the first part of that, the way that we look at Web 2.5, there's kind of two pieces that we're pushing at the beginning. One is this NFTs for funding and community, and then the second one that I'll talk about is token gating. So the way I see NFTs for funding and community is really, it's the 1,000 true fans. And I know a lot of people in here have probably heard that before, especially if you're in startup world or startup Twitter or just entrepreneurship in the last 10 or 15 years. You've probably heard of this. And the goal is to get your 1,000 true fans to pay you a certain amount a month every month in a SaaS product. And you can kind of just like float with that. Like that's enough to cover a person or a very small business or something like that, can get you over the hump, and you can be successful just on those 1,000 true fans, right? And so the way that applies to Web3 and NFTs, above the line here is sort of like common practices that occur in the early stages of building a startup. So a lot of startups will offer a limited lifetime deal, especially if they're like solo founders. So maybe you offer the first 300 people who sign up and pay $100, get a lifetime deal on it, and then after that it's going to go to $100 a year or something. And it produces two things. Obviously you get some upfront revenue, which is great, but it also creates this early supporter community, which is really, really valuable for a small business. What it doesn't do, that NFTs add to that, NFTs make those things socially shareable. This was something that really surprised me whenever we did our Bildr NFT passes. I wasn't exactly ready for people to just mint their pass and then immediately go to Twitter and just show it, right? So like normally whenever someone signs up for your SaaS product and they go through Stripe and they pay with their credit card, they don't immediately go tweet a picture of the logo of the SaaS they just signed up for and say, you should join me too, right? So NFTs make it this socially shareable part of the community, which is really interesting to see. And then another big part of it is that those are resellable. So if you've made those NFT passes the way to access your lifetime deal, then that early contributor, that early supporter of your community and of your product can actually later on resell that and make some of their money back, maybe even make money on it. If you've grown the product over time and there's a limited set of these lifetime deals, they might actually be able to make money on that original support. So it's a really cool concept, and it helps kind of like bridge the gap between the incentives of the early supporters and the incentives of the company. So it's a really cool way to do it. So this is the Bildr Studio Pass. This is an example of doing this. So there's kind of 4 pieces to this that I think are important. So first at the top, it's gated access, right? So it's a lifetime access to our product, our pro version of our product, and also some exclusive things. So you can only get the Web3 blocks and templates, and you can only get access to certain channels in our Discord if you hold a Studio Pass. And so it gives a little bit of gated access to specific things just for pass holders. And then the next thing is unique artwork, which Drew actually made our artwork. It's really cool, that re-roll art button. When you click that, it actually like redoes the art and makes it different colors, different shapes, and the little orbs move around. It's really cool. And he did that, by the way, completely without code using Bildr's actions, which was like mind-blowing the first time I saw it. It was like, how did you do this? Like all the little lines and everything in there just move around. It's really cool. And then when you connect to Mint, you're able to buy in anonymously. right? So normally you're using email address and you're saying who you are. You're actually able to do this anonymously, which is really interesting. Like we have users, we don't know who they are, right? It's kind of cool. And then the other really important piece here is a limited supply, right? So it's a SaaS model at the end of the day, right? You want it to be a software as a service, and you want that service to be paid for on a monthly or a yearly or quarterly basis, however you charge. So you want to limit this supply. It shouldn't be a forever lifetime pass, unless you have other revenue generation models within your product. Then obviously you can sell an infinite number of access passes at a fixed price, and then you can tack on additional services or additional features later on as well, just like any other freemium or something like an upgrade path. So that's NFTs as startup funding. And then now we'll talk about token gated access. And really what this is anonymous user authentication. So this is authenticating a user only by checking their wallet to see if they have a certain NFT or a certain token. Token and NFT can kind of be used interchangeably, by the way. So you'll hear people say that back and forth, and you can kind of just know that they're talking about either one. So anonymous user authentication really means wallets, not emails, for the most part. In Bildr, we actually use both. So you still might need emails to communicate with your users, right? And you can make that optional. You can make it required. You can have just wallets. If you don't need to communicate with them. Like one product we launched a couple months ago, GMLFG, actually doesn't have any of that. You just sign in with your wallet, and we don't ever track anything. We don't know anything about you. We're not even creating sessions with that one. So you can kind of do it in any way you want, which is really cool. So that's what I mean by connect versus sign here. So connect just means you connect with your wallet. Sign means you actually sign something in your wallet. And when you sign something, that is verifying that you own that wallet, and then you can do other things with that. So those are the two methods. So this is the connect. So a connect with wallet pop-up will come up. They choose the wallet, that retrieves the wallet address, and then you can kind of do one of two things with that. You can use that wallet address in your system to provide the service that you're wanting. You can store that in the system for future use, or later you can pass that wallet address to a future transaction. And that can get there's a lot of details in there. I'm going through like transactions and signatures and all those things. I'm happy to take questions in the Q&A and go into full depth there. But this is one of those use cases. So one way you can do it is like a full sign-in. And we do this in some of our products that we're building, and you can do this with native actions in Bildr. So the user connects with their wallet, that retrieves the wallet address, and then we do a signature request. And this is a website that I actually signed a message on earlier today. So I was like, I'll just use this as a screenshot, pixels in space. So basically what that is, when you click that and you say sign, what it's doing is it's confirming on the server side that you actually do own that wallet. So it stores that, confirms it, and then stores that and creates a Web 2 session. What's important about that is that's the Web 2.5 part of it. So like, I don't know who you are, right? I don't know what the user is, but I've created a session in the same way that a Web 2 sign-in auth would work. And that session then can be used for all the normal authentication procedures. So like, access to certain pages, access to data, that kind of thing. So you can use it in both ways. It can just be a connect, and you just use the wallet address for other things like looking up blockchain transactions or whatever it is. Or you can actually do full-on Web 2 sessions and do a full gated environment. So that was it for that part of it. And then I'm just going to go into a demo and show you guys how we do it in Bildr. But before I jump in, Drew, are there any questions or anything that you think we should answer? Is there anything in the chat that we should discuss before I show some things in Bildr?
I haven't seen anything in the chat question-wise. I can imagine there's probably a lot of questions on people's minds, like in different areas. So feel free. I'll try to chat them if Mark's talking, or we can just answer them live. But yeah, maybe just go to the demo.
Cool. All right. So let me jump over to this page. So this is a Bildr template. This is like it running in preview mode. So this is a template that we have where you can token gate Airtable forms and Airtable tables. So you can basically restrict access to it. This is like a home page of it, and I'm just going to demo it, and then I'll go in and show you what it looks like inside. So if I click fill out form here, it says you're going to need a Bildr Studio Pass, but this could be anything, right? So if, let's say for your product, you have an NFT that you minted as a pass for your product. Your user goes and mints the pass. Then you can use this template to token gate other content or your entire SaaS product or whatever you want. So I'm going to connect MetaMask here. And this is the MetaMask wallet here. I'm going to go to one that I know does not have a Studio Pass first, so we can see what that looks like. So I'll just go next. I'm going to connect only here. So this is not doing the full sign-in, it's just connecting. All right, and it says, oh, you don't have a Studio Pass. So let me connect with a different wallet. So I'm going to use this. We'll switch here, and I'm going to disconnect first. And what I want you to notice, like when this disconnects, the page actually like flipped me back out. So Bildr has built-in actions that just like know what's going on with the wallet, and you can actually be listening for those things in there and actually change the UI based on it. So if I go connect again, but this time not that one, I know I have one in this account. So I'll go connect, and since I have the specific NFT, which in this case is a Bildr Studio Pass, I can access this form. And then this form, in this case, would submit a record into an Airtable base. So this is a really simple demonstration of like how to token gate something. In this case, a form, but it could really be anything. And that template inside of Bildr comes in like this. So this is Bildr Studio, and I'll give a really brief introduction to Bildr Studio. I'm not sure who all in here today has actually already been in Bildr, but Bildr is a full stack web dev environment where you can pretty much build everything visually. So what you're looking at is an open canvas. So I've got all these different pages on the canvas, and you can see that like this is that home page. All right, so if I go back here to the home page, scroll up and down, this is that home page on the canvas here. And then this was the connect wallet page, and here's the form if it gets access. And then this is actually the table page. If you have records in Airtable, it would display those there. So this pattern or this template, whenever you go and create a new project, you can select this if you have a Studio Pass. And whenever you come in the first time, it's actually going to come up with a full overview and lesson on how to use this template. But it's pretty straightforward. All you would do in this case is go and, yeah. So where is it? Airtable, sorry, here we go. So in Airtable, you basically just have to connect your Airtable API key into your base ID and enter the table name and kind of do some field mappings. And once you're done with that, then this template is basically token gating that form, and you can manipulate it however you want. So the idea is that we're getting templates like this where we had someone that they needed to token gate an Airtable form like this. So we helped them build it, and then we just turned it into a template. And we're doing a lot of this right now with people as they're trying to come up to speed. We're producing templates like this. We're also producing, if you go into the Web3 button here, different blocks and page templates. And then as well, go into flows and actions. Let's go in here, go new action. It's like the MetaMask actions. There are some things about like contract interaction, things like minting NFTs, all kinds of things that we're just building right into the studio now. So really within Bildr at this point, you can build any of these Web 2.5 sites that you're looking to build. You can token gate basically anything. And if you need any help, you can always come into our Discord. There's a bunch of people in there now, a bunch of users in there now who know exactly what they're doing. And they're even adding more and faster than we are at this point. They're adding their own action types and their own element types and things to bring this up even faster. I think that was really all I wanted to do in the demo. But again, I'm happy to go as far as everyone would like to go. Let me stop sharing real quick. And yeah, I'm happy to like dive into any of those topics and talk about Web3 at a high level, or deep into it, or go into Bildr, or however we want to do it. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate everyone's time, and hopefully everyone learned something so far.
Yeah, I think this is Art. I think there was a couple questions. might be, Drew, it might be, I know you've been answering these sort of in line, but it might be helpful just to also, for the sake of the video that we'll publish out later, it might be helpful to answer these over the video, just a few that are probably the most sort of the most interesting.
Cool. Yeah, Drew, do you want to grab them? I don't know which ones they were. I can scroll back up though.
Scroll up a little, yeah. This first one I can see we can talk about for a second. It's kind of outside of Bildr about the communication problem. Basically, when you're talking about anonymous users and signing in with wallets, there's like a gap. Like our current paradigm, what we know now of communicating with users is like the goal is get that email address. Like as a company, that's what it's been. It's been like get that email, contact them later. And then Web3 is like, nope, take nothing from that. And so there's this gap, like how do you communicate with users or people who could be users, etc.
Yeah, I think the way that that's partially being solved is to kind of invert the power structure there as well, right? So rather than the messaging being pushed out sort of in an asynchronous way where the user doesn't have control over removing that, like the only way to remove that is for them to unsubscribe or to like block it in their email client. So it's kind of being inverted. It's like if you want to have messaging from this service, join this Discord is usually the method. And if you've joined the Discord, you've basically opted in there and you're kind of like going there for the messaging when you want to, right? So you might just ignore it and then you show up in there and there's 100 notifications 2 months later. So it's kind of inverting that process, but like Drew said, it's all learning right now. Like no one has a good answer for it yet.
And I mentioned, I chatted in there. I think someone will actually solve this with a product because it's not too far of a jump to imagine you could send a message to any wallet address, and then the person that owns that wallet address could like go to a service and connect. And if they wanted to, they could put their email in that service and say, notify me if someone messages me. Like you could achieve it. So that's probably like that would have spam problems and other things, but someone will solve this.
Yeah, for sure. Man, there's so many people in here that I know. That's really cool. Let's see.
The next one in line, I know there's more coming in too, but next one's about the nuances of different blockchains, Solana versus Ethereum in Bildr. And then also like, how do you tell Bildr what tokens to approve specifically?
Yeah,
which I
want to
also
talk about the chains?
here, but oh god.
Yeah, you do the chains and I'll do the which tokens.
Yeah, well, so the chains is interesting because there's different levels of like how you would access blockchain information. So that's the first thing. So sometimes you're not even actually using a blockchain. Like you can query the OpenSea API to get information sometimes. You're not even really using Web3 technically. I mean, they are, but you're just using an API. And then there's a level where you're actually querying a blockchain. And when we do it, we're using web3.js most of the time. Like there's like a third-party library that's in the middle. And so they have created the different like hooks and interactions that we're just using, just like if we were coding or if someone was coding, they would import that library and use the same things. So for the different chains, there's different versions of that library. And not always. So like for Ethereum, it depends what you really mean when you say like a different blockchain and the L1s and L2s. Like you can actually cover a lot of stuff with just the Bildr actions that are built for Ethereum, because you're doing like Arbitrum and Polygon and whatever. There's like a lot of stuff that's covered. When you switch to a completely different chain, they just have a different file they use to access. So you have to look at their documentation, import their JS file into Bildr, but the actual steps are the same. Like the concepts are all the same.
And then the other one was about how do you tell Bildr which token or NFT to check for, right? Is that the question? I think.
Yeah.
So let me show my screen again. I'll actually just show you. So inside of here, in this template and in Bildr generally, there's this action called get balance of a token in a wallet. And I named this one any studio passes. And all you do is you paste in the contract address. So whatever the NFT's contract address is. So this is the studio pass contract address. And then you also pass the wallet address that you're wanting to check. And then you tell it to set a variable name. So in this case, I set a variable name of studio passes. And the return on this is going to be the quantity of studio passes inside of that wallet. And then from there, you're going to do conditional logic to determine what to do, right? If they have enough or they don't have enough, then do something, right? So you'll have like conditional logic like this, where I'm checking the total tokens. If it's greater than or equal to 1, then I set a state. I do a bunch of other things. I like show something or hide something or load something or whatever it is. And there's other ways too. We already have it built into the studio, but we haven't actually announced it yet. And we need to add one piece to a serverless function for it, but it's already all in there. Basically, you can do the same exact thing, except for this token gated check is on the server side and doesn't even load the URL route in Bildr. So the whole routing system is actually gated in the same way. This is doing it on the front end in JavaScript, which there's a lot of ways to do this stuff. In Bildr, there's like almost 20 ways to do everything. Everyone always says that. It's like, well, if it doesn't work that way, do it another way. Same thing here. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but in general, you're going to have a contract address you're entering. You need to provide the wallet, which you'll have after they've connected their MetaMask or whatever wallet they're using. And then you're going to return that into something to do a conditional logic to let them in or not let them in. I think that's it.
Next one I see down the list here was about voting DAOs. So like someone asked about a template for supporting voting for DAOs, which is just like such a great tee up. Well, Mark referenced before about doing stuff with people, so making something for someone or helping out a group and then turning it into a template. We did recently just do like a DAO voting system for Rug Radio. So probably if you're in here in your NFTs, like you may have even seen it. But we did their whole voting system, and so we are going to turn that into a template for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to that, but that in general, that concept is what we're doing right now. We're partnering with groups that really need to get their Web3 things out of the gate. We help them get those things set up, and then we're turning the general practices or best practices back into templates that can be used by everyone else or anyone with a studio pass. So the only way to access this stuff in Bildr is with a studio pass, but the studio pass also comes with lifetime pro account for Bildr. So it's actually a really good deal too. So there was another question up there, Drew, I saw. It was from Eric. Yeah, about community without any Web3 experience. Like, this is the problem. This is the problem that needs to get solved over the next year or two, right? It's a multi-year problem, I would say. But the way I'm seeing it getting solved right now, which we're working with different brands their specific goal is to onboard new people into the space. And almost unanimously, the answer is what's called learn to earn. Learn to earn is basically you take a course or you learn some content, and then you take a test, a little quiz on your knowledge of that. And when you pass the quiz, you actually get tokens for doing the quiz, whatever it is. So it's called learn to earn because of that. And it's got nice synergies because it's like you want to learn this new stuff, and what better way to learn these new things than to have to actually participate in it in order to do it and get rewarded in the way that you're wanting to learn about, right? So that's it's a really synergistic way to do it. But these brands that are coming into the space, they don't know where to start with it. So we're helping them start that. And in Bildr, we will be doing something similar. It can get really deep. Like, the way that I want to see it is the community should be saying, hey, we would like to, we need this action type, or we need help with this thing in Web3 or in anything. We need help with building this thing or whatever it is. And that the response from the community can be to create a learn to earn content that then can teach that person, but also benefit everyone else in the community. And that idea of creating systems that work together for the benefit of everyone inside the system, that's one of the main goals of decentralization and Web3 in general. So I think that's probably how it'll get solved over time.
There's one in here about examples of wallet-based sign-in and token-based content, which we can probably say. I was about to try to type some into the chat, but the interesting thing is they're all token gated. So if you don't have the token, it's hard to show the example because you'd just be locked out. But we do have several, and even part of Bildr Studio is token gated. So when you're using the studio as a user and builder, some of the actions, some of the stuff Mark showed, you have to actually connect with your wallet, and it has to verify you're holding one of our passes to even have access to them. So I mean, that's a great example there, but it's like you wouldn't be able to see it in action unless you had a pass. So
yeah, I think that's a good thing to expand on too, is that right now what's generally being talked about is token gated access to content. But I think in the future, what you're going to see a lot more of is token gated access to specific features inside of SaaS products. We're already seeing some of the need for this with different communities we're working with, where they're building something in Bildr and they want to be able to have their DAO and their community actually contribute to the project in Bildr. Well, if you're going to do that, you need things like, a multi-signature authorization for publishing to production, things like that. So when you get into that level, now we're talking about, I need specific numbers of wallets, specific wallets with a specific set of NFTs in them to all click the publish button separately and do like a multi-signature on all of those to do a certain action within the studio. And I think that's where things will head. The interesting question to me on all that stuff is like, how badly can you break UX before people just like reject it? So that's the trade-off, is like you're making people click extra buttons, and it's sort of the opposite of what we've been doing in SaaS tech for like the last decade, of just like making it a cleaner and cleaner process to get to the end result. Now we're sort of saying, let's layer in all these things for the benefit of Web3, right? So it'll be a fun balancing act that happens over the next couple of years, I think, but it'll get figured out. These things will get solved.
Next question I see is about payment transactions on apps built in Bildr. Set up app triggers to perform wallet transactions, which, yeah, I mean, so you can do that in code with JavaScript. It's how you actually interact with Web3, which means you can do it in Bildr. You can do everything. So the answer is always yes. And right now, if you came into Bildr and you didn't know how to do that in JavaScript, you might be a little stuck. But we have actions that are coming out to make these things easier. So today there's no action that says, wallet payment or whatever you would call it, but pretty soon there will be, and you'll just pop it on there, say, type in your to address, type in your amount, and all the other stuff's handled for you.
Yeah, there's also a bunch of users in Discord now who are building this stuff without us, because in Bildr you can just create your own action types and bring in your own JavaScript libraries, really do whatever you want. If you're a coder, you can do anything you want in Bildr already. And so we have like the one of our users is a professor at a university, and he's actually created a whole library of blockchain interaction actions for his students, and he's like putting curriculum around it. And so eventually I'm sure those are going to make their way into the public sphere within there, but you could probably just pop into our Discord and ask for a specific thing, and I bet there are several users who have already built these action types that can be shared with you already. So it's all kind of coming to fruition right now. There's another one.
I missed the question I think in here about iOS applications. Is Bildr going to expand into that? I don't know if you want to touch on that.
We actually had someone in the Discord ask about doing native, and I mean, it's same answer as what we just answered. I mean, you can actually already do it right now if you know how to wrap it up and handle it that way. And eventually we will end up doing that, have our own wrappers. But going straight to native, probably not. I wouldn't think we'll have like a native Bildr app that translates our entire core that way. It'll likely be something wrapped as a web app that uses the native SDKs to communicate back and forth. So we'd have special actions. That's kind of how our Chrome extension export works. It's actually like a wrapper around a Bildr project, and we have a set of actions that can communicate directly with the browser using the browser's inbuilt messaging services. So you get all the power of Bildr. You just build a web app basically and export it as a Chrome extension, and certain actions you use to do interactions with the browser itself. Probably the same kind of thing, wrapping up a mobile app. Oh, thanks Lewis and Cobra for answering that one.
Same similar-ish question about, will Bildr do no-code version of smart contracts? I don't know if you have an answer. I mean, we think about this is like in flux in a way. We think about this all the time, go back and forth in these plans and expand them and contract them and get strategic. So I don't even know where we are right now.
Yeah, I think probably we will not offer our own version of smart contracts at this point. The main reason is there's already a bunch of companies out there doing a good job of it. There's a bunch of startups that are actually doing this right now. So like Third Web is one of those where you can go create a contract. So I think the way that we'll probably end up doing this is with partnerships. So create content that shows you how to go use that tool to generate your smart contract and get the output of that. You'll have your own smart contract that is from your wallet address, and then have an action specifically for each of those partners that says, here's how you mint on that type of contract. And a lot of it is basically standardized at this point in terms of the contract functions that are in there. So most of the function names are going to be the same across, like mint, check balance, that kind of stuff. They're all pretty much the same everywhere. I'm sure, you can do whatever you want. It's just code. So they can be whatever they want it to be. But for the most part, there are some standards that we can just create actions for that work with any contract too.
I think there'll be some some tech development there too, as far as like smart contracts are basically pretty early. So we could build a smart contract builder, but for example, like some of the startups you mentioned, like Manifold is one, they're actually making a thing that is purposely allowing you to like write your own smart contracts to interact with them. And so they're kind of like creating a door for us to make a really nice integration and just let them handle. So I think like in the future, it'll make more sense that someone else will handle a smart contract side and we'll be like sticking to that website, but be very integrated. But we'll see how the landscape plays out.
And all that being said too, if anyone has a project they're wanting to kick off and they need smart contract development, we also have a network of people that we can turn to ask if they want to help out with those things. So if you just need code written, just come pop in the Discord too and ask. And there's people in there who could write it for you. And there's also people outside of our Discord, just in our networks, that are doing that as a service for different collections and different projects. So feel free to ask.
Yeah, and there's a couple more. We should just keep going, right? Stop me. All right.
No,
looks like the next ones are two quick questions. Can you do wallet address gating? Which yes. There's like two levels of gating. So there's like a certain level that's good enough for most scenarios, and then there's like a super secure gating. So you could get into some details when you talk about wallet address gating and some nuances, but in general, yeah, definitely. In theory, you could gate on anything actually. And then can you save wallet address of users who connected their wallet to your site? Yes, you definitely can. You can save them as a variable, which would be sort of temporary. You can also save them into a data collection in Bildr and save everyone who's come to your site ever and go back and look at them later and do whatever you want with that information.
And Drew actually made a template. There's a project template in Bildr now for having an allow list just spun up. So it's cool too, because someone comes there, they connect their wallet. You can do an NFT check or not there. And really at that moment, you could in Bildr insert any logic you want. So if you want to go check an API and see if that wallet has been registered somewhere else, or if you want to go check really whatever you want, have them like sign in with Twitter or whatever you want to do at that point, you can basically enforce a set of rules and then take that and add it to the list of wallets. And that template also has, if they come back, the same wallet comes back and connects, it'll just tell them you're already on the list. So it's a cool little template that you can use to just spin up a wallet, to get a list of wallets basically, and maintain that list of wallets.
And then I think right now there's only one more, which is there a way to audit the code for compliance, security, etc.?
Yeah, so right now, if you're not on an enterprise account, the Bildr core code, the backend code, is not auditable. We do work with larger enterprises. If you're on one of our enterprise plans, which they're basically custom for every enterprise we work with, on those we can do like a source code licensing deal where you actually can access the entire source, but not for everyone yet. We do want to get to a state in the future where it's all available, and I want you to be able to just click the button and self-host any of it. It's just a lot of hurdles to jump before we get there. And I think probably one other thing to say on the token gating stuff up above, where what we were talking about right before that, keeping a log of who interacted. So there's kind of a bunch of different ways to go about it, right? But like in GMLFG, for instance, we don't track anything. We don't store anything really. We store the list of tokens, which is just blockchain information. You know, it's not anything that's not public anyways. But like the actual details of all the calculations and everything, we store all that in your local storage on your browser. And so the web app doesn't track anything really, you know, it's just kind of doing its thing. Whereas in Bildr, we're keeping the wallet address in local state, like in your local storage. But that's it. We don't actually like store any of that with your user. Eventually we're going to, because it just makes it easier for user experience. And that's kind of where the trade-off comes in of like storing versus not storing, right? It's how much of this do you want to expose to the user and make sure that they don't have to deal with that again, right? Like right now in Bildr, once a week, we expire the local storage state or the cookie. I can't remember if it's cookie or local storage now. But anyways, we expire it, and it comes, and after the expiration, you have to reconnect your MetaMask wallet, right? To get access to the pro features and get access to those templates again. And so that could change. If we just stored that wallet address, then we can just check to see if you still have the token every time, right? And we already have it and we're storing it. So there's user experience trade-offs, there's security trade-offs, and it's just kind of a question that needs to be asked for your specific user experience you're going for. Lewis, I can answer that one. Yeah, so we are about to put some job postings out. We're actually going to be looking for some people to help us out with technical community support and also documentation and training videos, writing, all kinds of things. That's really where we need some help. We need to be basically translating community support into more and more documentation. We're doing it right now internally, but we need some help on that. So in the next couple of weeks, we should see some job postings come out there. Probably will get posted in our Discord is probably the fastest way to see those. But yeah, that's where we're looking right now. We've got a really strong team that's been together for a long time. Drew is our newest member of our team, and it's 3 years now. So we're kind of a deep, long historied team, but we definitely need some help on that end now that we're finally like out of the gate and coming out with Bildr publicly, and you know, anyone can sign up, and we're doing all these fun things with Web3. We definitely need some help on support and docs. So cool.
That was awesome, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Ton of questions. So thanks everyone for participating and asking questions. That's the way everyone learns, right? So it's super cool. I think I learned a ton for sure. So I think everyone else did too. We'll wrap things up here just to sort of respect everyone's time. But as I said, this is recorded for sure. So we'll get it out. It'll just take a day or two. Hopefully even tomorrow, maybe we'll get it out. So thanks everyone so much. And unless there's any closing words, I think I'm good. Thanks for being a part of our community and the good devs for sure.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate y'all.
Yep. Thanks guys.